I met Stephanie at one of her workshops and instantly knew she was a force. There's a grounded fire in her, the kind that doesn't shout but shifts the entire room. She's a breathwork facilitator and life coach, a guide through the shadows of the inner child, and someone who doesn't just talk healing, she actually lives it. What I love most about her is how she holds space so fiercely and honestly. She sees through the noise and into the pattern. You don't leave a conversation with Steph the same. She has this way of reminding you who you really are, even in the moments that you've forgotten. Steph helps people uncover how many of their setbacks and challenges stem from unmet childhood needs, offering clarity on their wounds and guiding them to heal so they can step into their most empowered selves. Today, we're diving into childhood patterns, nervous system healing, and why doing the inner work isn't optional, it's foundational. Because when we do the work on ourselves, we don't just transform our own lives, we begin to understand everybody else more deeply, and our relationships shift too. If you've ever felt stuck in loops or wondered why you react the way you do, then this one's for you. Welcome to the Honesty Policy Hour. My name's Steph, and I'm so glad you're here. This podcast is a space for honest conversations and real connections, where we explore what it means to live well, not just personally, but collectively. Every episode, we dive into the powerful links between mind, body, spirit, and the world around us. Join me and my guests as we share personal stories, insights, and tools to help you live with intention, integrity, and well-being from the inside out.
We talk a lot about trauma these days, but we don't talk about how it hides and how it shapeshifts into our habits, our fears, our relationships. Do you believe that our wounds carry some sort of sacred intelligence? And if so, what are they really teaching us?
Yes, I do believe it, because I believe our wounds are almost parts of ourselves that we haven't necessarily learnt that lesson from what maybe had happened to us during childhood, whether it is anxiety, whether it is emotional pain, anger. If we're not learning from these like emotional pains to find what that lesson has taught us, when we'll never really truly find that real transformation that we need to continue deepening the self-awareness that we need for ourselves to have better relationship with others as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's tricky because when it hides in fears or habits, it's not looked at deeper. It's just, this is my habit, this is me, this is my personality. Yeah. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah. But I think a lot of people tend to look at it as if we're broken, like we need to be fixed. And there's a big difference with that I tend to see as well, where with myself, it's like, oh, I've got so many things that I haven't looked at. However, it's more to do with, I think, like seeing it and seeing the relationship with it and like picking it out and being like, okay, I don't need to be fixed. We've all got wounds. We've all got shit that we need to deal with. Yeah. It's just recognizing it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely do. I feel like some people, there's like a mix, like there's a jumble, like in conversations that I have with people, there are people that don't actually understand like inner child wounds and how it shows up in adulthood. Yeah. And then there's people that understand the childhood experiences and have that self-awareness, but don't actually know how to heal from it or implement it into their life by making different choices, thinking about things differently, and actually resolving the current challenges that they are experiencing because of these wounds. And I think that's where a lot of people are more, like they're fearful. They're fearful of exploring that because they think that maybe that can't come out of that experience that they've suppressed for so long. And they just think that, like that's a too hard basket. Everyone's got these problems. Everyone, no one's life's perfect.
Life's busy. Don't have time.
Excuses after excuses, but then it's like, what's it costing you? Yeah. And that's when I think, when it comes to this type of personal development, it's, it is self-motivated, but it's also, people are only really doing this type of work when it's at, stages of I'm about to get a divorce or my mental health is now affecting my child's emotional capacity, whether they're extremely anxious, and it's almost because of what they've witnessed.
Well, humans, we're so reactive. We're not proactive when it comes, especially when it comes to healing.
Yeah.
And especially if you haven't been taught the fundamentals of it, it's
Yeah.
such a learning, like when you're adult, like an adult. Like I didn't start looking at this side of my life until I was in my early 30s.
Yeah.
So and some women never. It's a really, or not even women, most people, but it's just really tricky because it comes from a place where, yeah, like we were saying, it's very reactive. But when do you find that most people actually do it? Is it when it is breaking point?
Yeah. I'm finding it in motherhood.
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
women are having babies,
Yeah.
and they're actually, there's a part of them that sometimes they can actually have more compassion for their mothers becoming a mum.
Absolutely.
When the mothers say, you'll never understand until you have your kids. There is that part, that compassion part. But it's also when they feel that, oh my goodness, I am repeating these types of cycles that I know happened to me as a child, or, my partner is doing exactly what his father did, and, they ended up divorced, and that's where I'm heading. And that's when they start to really gather what's happening, and they need to be quick, smart about it. And yeah, they kind of have this fear, like, have I left it too late? Yeah. Is this fixable? But yeah, that's the kind of common problem that most of my clients are coming to me with, like where they're at in life. It is literally motherhood.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to be like, now generational trauma is, kind of a bit of a buzzword. But it's like, what does that mean? And is it fixable? And some people are willing to try to, lighten the load of the trauma that they pass down to their kids by doing the work. And that's what it's all about. It's not about completely like breaking your own generational cycles, so then your kid's going to come out perfect, because there's probably other traumas that we're going to...
There's another reason my kid's going to go to therapy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what it's all about. It's not about you. It's about trying, obviously, to do the best you can, like what we would say our parents did for what they knew.
With the information they had, exactly.
Exactly. But it's also, lightening the load. And that's what I feel like our generation is, like that big filter of like, it stops with us, ends with us. Like there's a book on it, all that sort of stuff. And I think that's where it comes from when it comes to having daughters, or raising, true masculine sons, not, like the toxic masculinity of what, men are portrayed to need to be, and not have a sense of being in touch with their emotions because it's not manly and all that sort of stuff. So I feel like, there are a lot of women who are raising sons and need to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm dealing with both areas at the moment, where since my daughter has been born, my goodness, that I don't even know what it is, but that since she's been born, every part of my femininity has been on a silver platter, and I'm looking at it. So she's just holding up a mirror for me.
Yeah. And
she's one. So it is wild. It puts me back to my childhood so much when I see her. And the thing with healing, and when we start to meet our inner child for the first time as an adult, or even as a mother, it's always the bits that you feel that you're traumatized from that you would never expect. It's like, and you see it from the light where it's like, do I have a reason to be traumatized from that? But because I see it from an adult's perspective, I don't think it's traumatizing. But as a child, of course it is. Is that a common thing?
Well,
where people are surprised of what is their trauma?
Yeah, I feel like because when we are, reconnecting to our inner child and just children's development in general. So like, I feel like I'm always confusing myself and people on what I do, because I have got a passion for child development. So I kind of look at things from a child perspective, but then as an adult perspective, revisiting their inner child. And I feel like, as a child thinks the world revolves around them the first 8 years. Wow. So they internalize mum being angry as something that they've done wrong. They are unlovable. So when I'm parenting now, sometimes it's like, if I'm trying to correct something, it's like, the repair part is so important, because I know that me trying to teach my son or my daughter what's right or wrong, but sometimes they, as a child, they internalize that so much deeper. So then I know that now to consciously make sure that they are still loved, because that's what, when we do the inner child connection with my clients, that's the part that their parent didn't do. And that's when they're like, oh, because my grandma passed away, like my dad just lost his mum. I was upset, and she didn't receive the love that she needed by losing someone she was so close to. But then it's like, but that's your parents' parent who was mourning and holding space for themselves.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have intentionally tried to abandon you in that moment, but it's the fact that she lacked that love and that protection of her feelings.
Yeah, the hierarchy of grief is such an important, it's like, how dare you feel grief when you were only this level of a relationship when I was closer.
Yeah.
And it can be frustrating, because, and that's where it always comes down to. It's always the coming together. Yes, we've experienced two different things, but how about we come together? Because at the end of the day, we've experienced the same thing.
Yeah.
But your perspective of the situation and my perspective of the situation, we both have different realities of it. So why don't we come together and have a chat about it? And that's the missing piece that I tend to find within my family situations, or whenever anyone I speak to. It's the coming together towards the end of the repair part.
Yeah.
That is always lacking, because it's ego, embarrassment, that don't know how to actually have confronting conversations, don't know how to, and it's also painful.
Yeah.
Healing fucking hurts.
100%.
Like, I get why people don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But it's so important.
It's scary. Like,
Yeah.
the life out over the other side of clearing the shit is like, I can't even think of the word on the top of my head.
It's just
empowering. It's just like
uplifting.
If you think you know who you are before healing, you do actually not know who you are after, like, before healing, until you've done the work. Because that's when things really come to surface of like why you do certain things, why you think certain things, why you act and behave in a certain way. And then it's like, oh, well, this is what I've been taught. This is what I've witnessed. This is what I believe a woman should do and a man should do, and what I should need to do for work, and what car I need to drive, and where I should live, and who my friend should be. And it's like, it's only what the environment you grew up in is what you consider normal, but doesn't mean the person right next to you that's had a whole different life is abnormal.
No.
Or, not good enough or whatever, like they're not doing it the right way. And I think that's where like the generational piece comes in, like for the real cycle breakers that, don't want arranged marriages or don't want to marry their own kind and, want to be multicultural in their families or, homeschool, all these new things that people are like, oh, this is not heard of in our family, and all those expectations and, limits that everyone's been programmed to feel like that's the expectation that they need to be. And that's the mental health piece. People aren't meeting up to people's expectations, so they don't feel good enough.
That's the piece.
They have they've got very high anxiety.
Yeah, not good enough. Because we are like that herd mentality. Whereas if we're ostracized as a tribe, then we are in danger. We're not safe. Yeah, and it's such a primitive way of thinking, but it's not reality anymore. But our hormones still believe that. Yeah. So understanding of how the human operates versus how to live in our environment are completely two different things. Yeah. But once you kind of understand that, it makes sense why we feel that fear. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it is all about just running your own race. And I've said it many times, desire is your compass. You just need to follow it. Doesn't matter what your parents or your grandparents did. Like it's just so hard to follow someone else's life when you don't feel it in your heart. Yeah. When it's not your compass. It's like, I don't want to do this. I'm just doing it because I feel like I have to. Yeah. But, I'm the same. We're all running our own lives where it's like, oh, you're doing a bit different, but it feels good for me. Yeah. I know my kid better than anyone. Yeah. Or I know myself better than anyone. Yeah. And this is what we're going to do. It's an interesting conversation, but also like, with breathwork as well. It's a big part of your modality of healing. Yeah. Do you find... First of all, tell me a little bit about breathwork. For those who don't know much about it, let's talk a little bit about it.
All right. Well, breathwork is controlling intentional breathing. So you are basically breathing and entering a different state of consciousness through being controlled and intentional, like I said. And it's been used for thousands of years through ancient cultures. So it's a tool that they use to connect mind, body, and spirit. And this is what has helped people reclaim a sense of self. Whether it is to find inner peace and connect to your intuition, clarity and confidence and focus within their daily lives. Like that's what's now been integrated to use every single day. But it's also a modality that people are now using to release stored trapped emotions and trauma. So I've had numerous experiences doing breath work where I tapped into my subconscious mind and, revisited my inner child and was able to learn some really big lessons that I did not know were suppressed. Wow. And so when I tried it, my husband did not believe me. And it took me a few goes to get him on board. I've just been an advocate for it ever since. And that's when it came to me like, I do inner child work already, but how can I help people with my own healing journey, on my healing journey?
They go hand in hand.
Yeah, and they go hand in hand. And I think, with people not understanding inner child work, but once they do breath work, they know inner child work.
Yeah, that's...
And breath work now is big in America. It's big in, Gold Coast. And it's getting more into Melbourne, more around the beach, Alwood and all those, cool to conscious, little setups and stuff. There's not much in this area. And that's when I said to my husband, like, why do we, like us being the North, why do we have to travel there for us to get our medicine, What would it be like if we are the people that bring it to our hometown? Ugh. And that's when I was like, I'm doing it. And just to share the journey of, healing without, doing anything besides using your breath, and just sitting in a calm state. Our brain releases this substance called DMT, which is like the substance that we release when we're sleeping. So we're entering a dream state, but it's almost like with breath work, you can enter a state of euphoria and bliss. And that's when you just be like, you're guided through a facilitator. And that's where you are taken on a journey where, people don't allow that time to just process, and it takes you there. And you come out with like wow, I had no idea. People are building compassion for themselves. They're building that self-love again, because it does tap into the inner child and reparenting, which is exactly what I do. So, I think it's just a full circle moment with breath work, how that's changed my life, how it's helped my husband. And now he's going on a journey to support men in men's mental health.
Oh, well done.
And we are also wanting to combine it with relationships because, with the stress of being a mum and a hardworking dad, coming together in our place of safety, sometimes we just take it out on the people that we love the most. Yeah. And we're seeing that with my clients. They're all in relationships and they all are having these experiences. So I thought, how can I, given my own life experience, integrate that with breathwork, support people?
It's so common with relationships, especially when kids come on board. It completely changes the dynamic.
Yeah,
because you don't have time for each other as much anymore.
Yeah,
it's you have a couple hours before the kids go to bed and you go to bed and that's it. And it's such an important piece. If you could do that for people, oh my God, it's an invaluable lesson.
And I think generational wise, and speaking from European backgrounds, and I know I've spoken to Middle Eastern and all the big loud extroverted energy parents, I think it's almost like being on the same page of parenting, handling stress. We came from hardworking backgrounds, our parents, and after being out at work a whole day, got 2% battery, and then not being able to hold yourself together, we're just screaming, waving hands parents, and that's what's created nervous systems within our generation. And then we've repeated those patterns, or like I've been consciously aware, but you know, I've just seen people around me that aren't aware of the way that they are, you know, not dealing with their kids' big emotions and actually how their parents have, you know, raised them. It's literally repeated because it's just nervous system.
It remembers.
Yeah.
And it's so subconscious because I've caught myself out many times where I'm just like, my son's melting down into the corner and I'm just like, and I don't want to act like that, but my nervous system is just a fighter and I just want to have some form of control.
Yeah.
So screaming for him to stop is my only way. And it's not.
Yeah.
It's actually not. And I think having that capacity to catch yourself out is fucking hard. It takes everything in my power to say, take a deep breath and just hold space and just say, you're safe.
Yeah.
Like to me.
Yeah.
Because I can see the little Steph in the corner freaking out and I can see her. And from doing that, from doing inner child work, it's like, you are safe. And my son, you are safe. We're all safe. It's okay. No tigers are chasing us. It's just a hard moment. And, you know, holding space for each other, it's really tough.
And it's energetically exhausting.
Exactly. Especially if you've got multiple in a day and 3. So I'm there like bang, bang, bang.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, it's that parent that screams to, you know, for dominance and to put fear over us about don't be naughty, otherwise
Control.
You know, and that's where we're all anxious. We're all got fear because we're like, if we fear our parents and our parents love us, imagine everybody else around us. And this is why people fear making certain decisions that are like empowering decisions, but they fear, especially if they're not getting parents' approval, you know, and that's where I am so conscious, like, of even trying to raise my voice for like that dominance, because I'm like, this is learned behavior. This is just me trying to claim authority, but what's it actually doing on the other end of this, on like other end of my son receiving it or my daughter receiving it? And that's where I'm like, break this up. Which way do I, like, how do I have to respond? And it's like hard because it's my default, you know, and
especially when you're stressed, you don't know anything else but your default. Yeah. So logic is out the window.
Yeah.
There's no such thing.
Yeah.
So remembering and just like you said, you have to stop yourself in your tracks.
Yeah.
You actually do, and be like,
yeah,
it's all good. We're on there. But bringing it back to the breath work, do you find, obviously when it comes to when people are deep into it, do you, like I know with my personal experience, childhood stuff always comes up first, or what we need to hear comes up first. Yeah. And this is my version of it, correct me if I'm wrong, but the body just naturally heals what is the most important. It's like when we fast, if we have gut issues, the best way to do it is fasting, because if we're not busy digesting, we've got time to actually heal our body.
Yeah.
Is it the same thing with breath work?
Yeah. Well, like the thing is with like the emotional release technique, it's the same thing. So it pretty much sends you messages, like your body's wisdom will tell you what you need to know in this moment. So your experiences or your life events before that day, if it was something like, you know, you said you've been brewing on, you know, starting a podcast up again, and then that breathwork session was the like empowered like activation of it. So it's almost like whatever was sort of in your world at that moment is what sort of like helped you dig deep to, you know, really like process and come out the other end. So I believe that, yeah, if there is something that's happening for you right now, and that's why like when I start the breathwork session, it's all about setting an intention because that's what we go with. That's what we work with.
Yeah.
You know, we do connect to our inner child because like our inner child would have experienced like a belief or a pattern that is now showing up in adulthood. But it's about that intention, and that's what's going to dive you into that part of your brain when we're in that breathwork. Yeah. And that's what we heal from. And then the next experience, we do the same sort of breathwork technique, same sort of journey. But if you've got a different intention, it'll take you somewhere else.
That's the key, the intention.
Yeah.
Just circling back to what you said as well about my experience with breathwork with you, with your workshop, which is how we met.
Yes.
I've done breathwork a few times, and this time with you, it was the podcast was coming. The second season after my baby girl was coming, but I was just like, so much going on, too hard. And I don't even know what my intention was. I can't even remember. But as we were doing it, it was like I saw the podcast. Call it visions, call it voices, call it whatever you want. But I saw my podcast, I saw microphones, and I saw your face.
Wow.
I saw your face, and I saw 3 other faces of like potential podcast guests.
Yeah.
And I messaged all 4 of them after. And how long ago was that workshop?
2 months ago.
There you go. So here we are.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's powerful stuff if you have the opportunity. And most of the time we all have all the information we need. We're just, especially with social media and the internet, we're outsourcing everything.
Yeah.
When it's the internal, but we just don't have that capacity, the time to sit in stillness. And that's when it always comes to us. Even if we're sitting down for 5, sometimes when I'm washing my face or brushing my teeth and my phone's nowhere in sight, like I hear things, I feel things, the things come to me and I'm like, oh, that's why I'm feeling fucking like a shaken up Coke bottle.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like 5 seconds, 5 seconds of stillness.
Yeah.
So imagine what 30 minutes of breath work can actually do for your nervous system. It's wild.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, it's great to do the emotional release with the facilitator because, I do emotional releases virtually as well. But it's also like, you know, with the de-armoring of the physical pressure points to help with that extra emotional release. And it is quite exhausting as well. But what I suggest with my clients and how I help them with their nervous system resetting for people who are constantly overwhelmed, anxious, and just really feel like they're always in a state of fight or flight.
Yeah.
I literally help them implement a few simple breathwork techniques every single day. So it's a different type of breathwork because there is like 21 different techniques.
Wow.
Yeah. So depending on what the intentions are and what the technique is, it gives a certain benefit. But that's how I kind of help them just come back to themselves and allow that time. And that's only literally 5 minutes.
Wow.
And for me, I like to do my breath work in the shower. You know, that's, I feel like, literally my only me time.
Wow. I've never actually thought about doing
Yeah, and I literally just pause, hand on my heart, do some box breathing, do 5 rounds, and then call it a day. I feel like because that's
breathing. For those
breathing. So box breathing is you inhale for 4 seconds.
Can we do it?
Yeah, let's go. So you can put like your hand on your heart, and you can put like your other hand on your stomach. And so you inhale. You can inhale through your nose. So inhale for 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to pause for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 1 round. And I just do that 4 or 5 times.
Okay.
And then if I feel like, I've had a big morning with the kids, I'll just maybe do 2 more rounds. But then I'll feel like a sense of peace. Like, I've got this. Because I know that if I'm like literally heightened emotions, the smallest thing will snowball me straight up.
You get the worst version of yourself.
Oh,
you just, and meeting the best version, it takes so much time and capacity. But I wanted to touch on something that you said before about bringing the lessons into your everyday life. Like I feel that, it's all good and well doing Reiki, breath work, all the modalities, but this is the thing that I find with the spiritual world or the people that are really holistic space.
Yeah.
They're doing all the things.
Yeah.
But my everyday life, the way I react, the way I converse, the way all those things are just not reflecting that.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that like in my 20s, I was doing all the things.
Yeah.
But my everyday life, it was just, I wasn't integrating it.
Yeah.
What are ways where people can integrate the modalities they learn, like the big workshops and stuff, and like, because it's expensive doing things all the time or time poor, all these things. How do we do it? How do we integrate?
Thanks for being here and listening so far. We're going to take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, one I genuinely love and that truly aligns with the heart of this podcast, Eco Wipes. They are the cleanest and most sustainable wipes on the market. These unbleached, compostable, organic bamboo wipes are not only super gentle for you and your baby's skin, but when you're finished, they are also perfect for your garden compost. I keep a pack in the kids' rooms for nappy changes and another in the kitchen for all the messy spills that come with toddlers. You can use them wet or dry, which is a total game changer for versatility. But Eco Wipes doesn't just stop there. They've got a whole range I'm obsessed with. They have unbleached organic bamboo toilet paper because honestly, who wants bleach near their bits? They have paper towels produced the same way, no weird chemicals, no plastic coatings, no nasties, just clean, safe, sustainable products that end in your compost. Now let's talk about Keeps, their take on the kitchen cloth. Forget about those blue plastic chucks. Keeps are reusable, compostable, biodegradable, and organic. Most household cloths on the market carry toxins through microplastics that mess with your hormones and build up in your body over time. Keeps are totally microplastic and toxin free. No plastic residue, just a cleaner kitchen and a cleaner conscience, knowing that they can aid in creating beautifully nourished soil for your veggie patch. Eco Wipes is all about zero waste. The tubs are a one time buy, and the wipes come as dry refills. They are shelf stable until you're ready to mix the solution. They last longer, work better, and create much less waste. And the cherry on top, every purchase you make, Eco Wipes plants a tree on your behalf in Australia. How good is that? I am so proud to partner with this brand that walks their talk when it comes to health and sustainability for the planet. Use my code HONESTY10 for 10% off, and you'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for supporting the brands that support this space. Now let's get back to the episode.
Well, I think it's a matter of the embodiment. So when it comes to thinking about high self, and just say it's like right now I snap. And it's like, okay, I've sort of addressed why I snap because I feel like I'm never heard in my relationship. Just say if like that's like, you know, someone's kind of come to the pattern from an inner child and being unheard as a child has now shown up in the relationship as I am unheard. So now I snap, which is like not the healthy or, you know, beneficial way to respond. It's about there's a self-awareness piece, and, you know, seeing where it's come from. What are actions that you can start to implement moving forward? So when it comes to, you know, doing the modality and the experience and you've had this self-awareness, it's about if you're not integrating, if it's not a workshop, it's just a session. If you haven't allowed that time to integrate in terms of how can I change my way of living moving forward? Do I need to, you know, pause for 5 seconds before I respond to my partner? You know, it's actually, you need to take that time to find what's going to be your next action. Because we can all think, oh, you know, we're not going to be triggered after today. But it's like, if you haven't got the stack in your head ready to go of, okay, but this is what I'm going to do instead, it's not going to happen. So it's about literally that integration piece, right? So from this part of awareness, what am I going to implement to integrate to then learn if that was the right like technique that I need to do, or do I need to try something else? That's the effort required, and it is tiring and people don't have time, but that's what it's costing you by not allowing that time.
Exactly.
And
Separation.
Yeah.
More space between each other.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. So the modality is the tool
To bring self-awareness.
to bring the peace to the table.
Yeah.
All right. I get triggered when I'm not heard.
Yeah.
What do I do when I'm not heard? I yell.
Yeah.
All right. There it is. So next time next time I'm not heard, what are we going to do? So, all right. So having a plan of attack.
Yeah, it's always a plan of attack.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes if they're like, even if it's someone who overworks and gets burnt out, I get burnt out because I don't feel like I'm good enough if I'm not making X amount this month, or if I am not consistently productive.
Yeah.
So what can I do that is going to make me not burn out, but also not think that working so much is equal to self-worth? And it's like, it might be like a letter to your inner child. It might be what is something that you can do that is something that still feels like you're doing something but doesn't mean working and making money. And how do you feel? Like it's maybe like taking those actions. So what would it be by going and booking a massage to treat yourself with respect if you respect yourself, you know? And that's that integration piece. And people won't know the feeling until they've done the action, you know, and some people are like, oh yeah, I've done a massage, don't feel so good. Okay, that's not the action for you. So then let's try something else.
Yeah.
And that's the implementation. Yeah. Like, just say, for example, if you feel like you want to have an argument with your partner's trying to have an argument with you, and you're like, I'm going to pause 4 seconds and say, you know, I don't appreciate that. And then he comes at you 10 times more, and then you can't handle yourself. So it's like, maybe I'm going to need to leave the room for 5 minutes, then come back into the room and say, okay, I'm ready to talk. 2 different implementations, and you won't know until you work out, okay, this actually worked, and this may start off as my first approach, and then as my partner now learns my new way of behaving in relationships, then maybe after the 5th time I might say, let's try again.
Yeah.
And then they learn. Because when you're in relationships, it's not so much about teaching yourself. You actually have to teach somebody else how you want them to respond to you.
Absolutely.
It's exhausting. It is exhausting. And yeah, I've been there, and it paid off. And like anything you work hard for, you're persistent with, and you believe that you have really great intentions, it will work out.
That's amazing. Well, so getting into that part, how did you get into it? Tell me a little bit about your story.
How did I get into breathwork or inner child?
Everything. Okay. Tell me about your journey.
Okay. Do I have time limit? Okay, so my healing journey started 5 years ago. And it was when I was at rock bottom in my marriage. We're having more bad days than good. And I just thought I had to try one more thing. And we did the couples counseling, and it was like very egotistic and, you know, blame game and all that sort of stuff. We went to psychologists and all that, and the talk therapy just wasn't for me. I just could not connect. And then I was on Instagram, and I started seeing like abandonment wounds equals, you know, avoidant attachment, workaholic, and all these like little words that start to spit out at me. And then it was like, you know, throwing the words around inner child and all that. And then one day I came across Michelle, the kinesiologist, and I thought, you know, I'd done kinesiology as a little kid, mind you, with my mum. Yeah. And, you know, I didn't know much about it as a kid, and I didn't know much about it when I was 5 years ago, like 25 years old. So I was like, you know what? I felt a calling at that moment, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to book a call. And I booked a call, and from that day on, I think I committed to my inner child healing every 3 weeks for a whole year. And it was so bizarre that, you know, my inner child and the way I was showing up as a relationship, which, you know, was my partner looked like the worst person. But it was almost like because of the messaging I was sending him from being such a wounded child, but really a wounded feminine, you know. So I lacked self-worth. And I felt like I needed to bring a certain amount of money. So I was so like, I was the workaholic, you know, and I didn't believe that I deserved love. I also lacked trust from past relationship breakups. I didn't know how to show love, receive love, be feminine, because I came from my mum was very masculine orientated, being divorced parents. She took the role of mother and father from such a young age. So I only was raised to see my mum as that strong, like, you know, no time to cry kind of mother. And that's how I actually became. And we butted heads. My husband wanted affection, but I didn't know how to like give it to him in that way as a being gentle and nurturing. And it was, you know, moments where I used to binge eat as well, that I thought I need to, you know, go on fast fad diets. And I just had this bad relationship with my eating that I had no confidence when I went to Europe. And I gained 15 kilos in 8 weeks. So not only was I physically like not my best version of myself, but internally I was like fighting demons every single day, torturing myself, training 4 hours a day, under eating, and then, you know, coming to people's dinners and lunches with like weighed food every single day in, day out, because I was in yo-yo dieting. I did 8 weeks challenges, lost 10 kilos, and then after the challenge was over, I'd gained back because I restricted myself. And then I worked out that binge eating was actually, and like craving sugar so much was only because I was missing the real sweetness of life. And so with kinesiology and like other inner child healing modalities, I did Reiki and all that sort of stuff as well. I was able to really understand and have that self-awareness. But then what I did, because I committed to it, like a bit of a coaching thing, because I, used Michelle as a mentor. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, I've had this self-awareness piece. It was like, she gave me homework and I went back 3 weeks later to be like, this is the implementation and integration I did from this learning. And that's why like I was so eager. And because I knew that I was going to be divorced, and that's shame. That was shame. And I knew my relationship had so much potential, and I knew there was parts of me that just wasn't hitting the nail on the head. And, for me, like I held shame on myself for not being I didn't cook. I know how to cook, but my husband's a better cook than me. But because I love to work and, bring my own income and have that sense of independence, I was never really raised in the kitchen. So I always felt like I was less than, that I had to overcompensate by making a certain amount of money to compensate for not being.
That's awareness right there.
Yeah. But then it was like, that's self-love.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I had to love myself for not cooking because I'm great at something else, but I never saw that in that way because everyone around me was cooking. And it's like, oh, I feel so left out. But what do I do that is my own strength? I had to see it from a different light. So, yeah, anyway, that's kind of where I had to heal myself to come into a relationship almost like a whole different person, until it was the point where I had changed so much, but my husband was almost at the same level where I started my journey. And it was one of those things that he was actually not being able to cope on the growth, because everyone could see the radiance that was coming out of me because of the wisdom that I learned from the wounds and the understanding of not only myself but others around me so much.
Having to hold each other's hands when one goes up, one goes down, one goes up. That's exhausting.
Yeah. And so I knew a lot of my wounds, obviously, except for childhood. So I had to educate my husband, who was so like, I don't know what you're talking about, and you're crazy, and I've been called crazy this whole journey from everyone. And it was only until I kind of gave my husband you need to understand where these behaviors coming from, and let's get to the root cause. And that's when he was like, I have to do this for my marriage. And so he started. I worked with him. It's almost like I coached him. And we did this together. And, from people thinking, how the hell are you two fucking still together, to you guys are fucking one dream team. Like legitimately. And because my husband realized his inner child with his parents, the divorce, we both come from divorced parents. We're both the first oldest kids, or first child. We witnessed the parents' divorce. We felt the parents' divorce, being the first child, the kid that got all the love, and then we didn't see healthy ways of resolving conflict. We didn't see how, everything was mind games, everything was triggers, everything was, just pushing boundaries, So I had to break the cycle, and I had to show him that he had to break the cycle, because if we ever wanted kids, when people would ask me, when are you having kids? I'm thinking, oh my God, I couldn't give anything worse. I actually wasn't maternal. I thought that I didn't actually want kids because I thought I'd lose myself. I would not be able to make so much money, and I wouldn't even know how to be a mum because I'm not even feminine. I'm so masculine. And I was thinking, there is no way I could do this to my kids. And not only thought, I didn't think I was actually that mum that could just sit home and play with kids, ugh. And then that healing was whoa, I want babies. And then I was blessed with twins. Yeah. And even my husband, and, I'm a big believer that it's not just postpartum for mums, it's postpartum for dads. And, being the conscious person in the relationship, I'll give myself the credit, I'm the weighted conscious person in the relationship. I was able to help my husband navigate through breaking cycles, being a present father from day one, that he thought, oh, this feels uncomfortable because I haven't got this as an example. I didn't have this as an example, you know?
It's so true that the husbands go through it as well. It's such a big one. I've noticed too in most men that I have in my life that it's also the pressure of providing.
Yeah.
So when kids come, there's more pressure.
Yeah.
I'm not doing enough. I need more. I need to do this. I need to do that. And that's where the shrink of like diminishing in your power can come from.
Yeah.
Where it's, having, and then thrown on top of it being time poor, not connecting with your partner, not doing that. And it's obvious that disconnection is going to happen when you're following that cycle. So, and I believe that that's like 90% of marriages.
Like 99. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And yeah, like that's what really helped me start this journey, because I literally turned my relationship around. Just before
you saw the power in it.
Yeah, just before. And I think, a lot of things that came within me, being pregnant with twins and the fear, like it was already a big fear for me because I had body dysmorphia. And I was scared about gaining weight and losing control out of my body. And that's a big thing of someone that struggles with losing weight. And me not wanting to have a baby until I was a certain weight. So then, like, I was so in my head about things. Anyway, I felt pregnant at the most perfect timing. And I said I wanted to be pregnant at the end of 2022, maybe, and then December. December. I started in September, and I think I got pregnant the second or third. Yeah, sorry, I got pregnant the third month of trying. And December, I was pregnant. And then I was so excited for the journey. And then people, I obviously announced I was having twins. And then I felt I was, projected so much of other people's stuff. I gained 40 kilos.
Oh,
you're going to have twins, so good luck. And you're not going to have time to do this. And you're not going to have time to do that. And, get ready for no sleep. And, And I was in my head thinking, Steph, if I hadn't done the work, I probably would have hit postnatal. Easy. Because everyone's saying, I had a full-time corporate job and I was lashing at the time to compensate. I lashed until the day my kids came in. Right? So 37 weeks and 6 days. I was pregnant. So I was measuring 52 weeks pregnant and I'm lashing because I had a dream to not go back to my corporate job and be that mum that can stay home. That's how maternal I became, that I ended up not going back to my corporate job. I kept my lash business to replace the exact same amount of money in my own pocket. And I was being that present mum, and I worked on my own terms, my own hours, and I made it possible because I believed in myself. And that's when I really was like, whoa, I can do it.
We can do anything.
Yeah. And that's when I thought, you know what, there's so many mums out there that don't feel like they can do it because the friend next to them couldn't do it.
It's just this diminishing in power of the tribe. Like the way we uplift each other, we can push each other down just as hard. And it's always easier to get pushed down than to be raised up.
Yeah.
It is so much easier. And the understanding of it's okay to tell you my biggest issue during my pregnancy when you're experiencing yours. What is that?
Oh,
Why do people think that that's a good idea?
And negativity loves company.
They do.
And literally
misery loves comfort.
I was I told George, we are a team. But we are a team. I am not going to not do the things for me. I set those boundaries. I didn't let the kids dictate my life. I made sure I dictated my life and everything that happens around it. So I still made time to go to the gym 5 weeks postpartum. They came with me, and if they didn't, I would go in the morning before my husband went for work. I worked, so George would do the bath time as his way of bonding. I wasn't about me doing it all because I'm the mother, my husband goes to work. It's no attachment because I'm so passionate about it. He's going to have a chance to have his own bond with the kids. Yeah. I'm not going to overshadow and micromanage, and I'm going to have my own time, obviously, when he's at work. So I wanted my kids to have a solid bond with mother and father. I wanted my son and his father, a bond that my husband didn't get, having 5 other siblings after him and then divorced parents, it's gone. So I was so adamant, this is what I want. And I got it because I worked hard for it and I meant well by it. And I wouldn't have been able to do this without George being on board. So I'm very, very blessed. And that's when I started to see relationships around me go through the same thing when they're into parenthood around, oh, I don't get to do this now. My husband complains about certain things that, like, it's almost like the conversations that they didn't have. And this is where it ended up. And this is when that spark came within me to, when I was in maternity leave, I studied and I started to be a life coach. And I'm like, I've been told that my whole life based on my own journey from 5 years ago. Steph, you're going to be a great life coach one day. And I'm like, me, life coach, you joking? And I kind of thought, you know what, if it's now or never. I'm off my full-time job. If I'm going to study, I've got newborns that are sleeping. Like, they have their intervals and stuff. That was my big window to be like, I'm here to, like, be more. I'm here to, like, serve my soul purpose. And it's going to be now or never. And so that's when I thought, you know what? I have been able to resonate with so many of my lash clients and help them through their inner child work just on my lash bed. Imagine if I did this with people online. And that's when it all just, like, fleshed out. And, I kind of started off as life coaching. And then that's when I went into the inner child to niche myself.
Yep.
And then the breath work on top to complement and sort of be a full package sort of thing. And that's the long story of how it all kind of came about. But, it was just more like my pregnancy and that real empowerment of motherhood and
the piece of the femininity, especially there's no more feminine thing than being pregnant. And I was exactly the same as you, that masculine vibe of just control, dominance, aggression, this is who I am. But
thinking that's really empowering.
Exactly. I am powerful. It's like, no, not really. And the softening is so important. And, you hear it all the time of when your partner allows you to soften and you can really come together. And that's the beauty of it. And when you're working together as a team, it just makes it easier. And why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't you want, life is hard enough.
Yeah. And I think, like, obviously I'm still human and so is my husband and we have conflict. But if you could be a little fly on the wall and watch the conflict go from like that to like normal, it's like, imagine if a child was to witness that, and then it really goes to show how many people did witness that think that was normal. And that's why they're repeating it. And that's why it's generational. And it's like, oh, like, he's just a hothead. Oh, he's just this. And I'm just like, I've got no time. Like, my plus self.
Excuses.
Like, they're the excuses. Like, I don't take no shit from no one. Inner child. Like, it's literally inner child. And I think another thing with the mind-body dissociation with, people resorting to, for me and for most females, it's sort of like an emotional eating thing, that mind-body disconnection, like of what we weren't taught as a child to connect to ourselves and feel our feelings because, as a parent, you might have been, disciplined in a way where like your feelings don't matter or like aren't heard because like what they say is right, and this is kind of like the generational way of parenting, that fear. And so now it's like you see men or like women drinking and women binge eating and women like, whatever. And then men are gambling and men are, well, women can gamble, but men are gaming, like all these everyday technology things people are just being even women watching TV reality shows, like not that it's a bad thing, but even just all that overdoing things of being in other people's realities because you just can't stand your own. That's what the society has, I think, grown to from this generational trauma of not being able to connect to yourself. And that's from a whole lot of things, pressure of going to work, being burnt out, because it's 2 incomes to pay mortgage and all the things that are happening externally. But it's like about building the muscle, the discipline and the grit to actually force yourself to connect to self before you get lost
That's the worst case scenario. What you're saying is that, like we were saying, 95% of relationships are like that. But that is the worst case scenario. And as a society, when you're having all these dysregulated marriages and couples, and as a society, it's just complete dysregulation.
Yeah.
So, people want to change the world, and I truly believe it's starting within yourself. We project so much, and we can regulate our emotions to it, so our kids can learn and their kids can learn, and so on. I think it's just, it's such a powerful piece.
I just think like I could have fallen into that trap if I didn't do it.
Absolutely.
That would have been me. That would have been my kids. And like that's like where like that sense of confidence and like proud moment of myself, going through my own stuff to not have my kids feel what I felt and not do it intentionally, because we never want to do it intentionally, but it's like when you consciously see it, can't unsee it. So
No.
like it's
Absolutely.
one of those things that like I see it just pan out in so many people's lives differently that don't believe in this type of work, don't believe that, connecting to yourself and your inner child and your wounds matter. And that's why people are, even if you've got all the money in the world, which is what society, parents tell you, if you have money, you're successful. And it's like, okay, but if you've overworked and you have disconnected yourself from your family, your son doesn't have a relationship with you, he's craving your love, like you probably craved your dad's love, but your wife also leaves you because you haven't got any battery to show her love and keep her happy, in a relationship. So it's like, I see it on both ends of the spectrum, people who have lots of money and have it all materialistically, but there's no sense of like
Connection.
God.
What do you got to be upset about? You got all the money in the world.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and honestly, Parenthood taught me different. I have made some really big decisions to keep me home longer, or even just now because I've started this business, like it's for good now. But before even starting this business, I was like, I am not going back to work. I don't care if I have to literally sell everything. I was born here to be a mum before I'm an employee, a business owner, even a daughter. I was like, I'm here to raise my babies. No one else is raising my babies. I love my babies and I'm very blessed to have them. And I'm so grateful for them that I want them every single day. Yeah.
Well, to conclude one more question for you. So if someone was to listening now that feels cracked open right now, because it sounds something like it's getting poked internally, what would you like them to know? Where do they start?
I think if there is anything that people want to know about themselves in their adulthood is to literally Google wounded feminine. And if they Google wounded feminine.
Even for men?
And wounded masculine for men.
Yep.
I think it's almost like a little survey quiz to see where you're at. And if any of those, characteristics or traits resonate with you, that means there's a wound there. And that is the self-awareness piece to start your journey.
It's good start.
Yeah. And then that means that, like, if you look at grounded feminine, which are all like, the healed kind of traits, that's where healing those wounds will get you there.
Oh.
And that's exactly like, one of the exercises I do with my clients, to be like, this is where you're at now, but let's look at where you can be once you heal these wounds. And that's when you can start your journey. If there's a modality that, someone can recommend to you, or even if you want to try breathwork, or anything that you feel like has a calling to you, whether it's just a particular person, a particular modality that, your colleagues or someone around you has mentioned, to give that a go. You won't know unless you try and take that action, as I said. So I feel like that is step one on building that self-awareness, and then finding that thing to help you implement and integrate.
Yeah, beautiful answer. Love that. And what's happening next in Stephanie Bailey's journey?
Gosh, okay. So I don't know if I said this. No, I haven't said it. So what I'm working on now is to get involved with corporate, helping men and women in their everyday lives learn about emotional regulation and nervous system management. Obviously, people have to work. and it's about how to better handle their stress and build a nervous system with a bit more resilience and grit. And also so they can go home and pour into their loved ones after a big day, and not be the worst version of themselves, as people would say. So I'd love to help, people in the corporate space. And so I think that's not even in Melbourne. So I'd love to, be that person. What else am I doing? Me and my husband are, as I said earlier, I don't think I've said this on the podcast, but we are teaming up. We're called the Aligned Evolution. And then we'll branch out Stephanie Bailey and George Bailey. He's going to be a 9D breathwork facilitator. And we're trying to get a location in Melbourne, or even a couple, to sort of help people around Melbourne, whether north, south, east, west, whatever locations we can find, to help people, build that emotional resilience again through breathwork on a 9D level. So it's through headphones.
9D.
9D.
Wow.
So you're going even higher than what I do, which is 5D. And it's more of a sessional thing. So it's actually spread out into 30-minute journeys, whether it's grief, loss, obviously the same thing, anxiety, stress, they're different journeys, and you can kind of book sessions based on what sort of journey you want to be taken on. And they'll be put into location. So that's that.
Amazing.
And I'm also doing a few more collaborations with the fitness industry, because I know, just based on my toxic positivity past with the health and fitness, and people overtraining and, doing positive things with negative intentions, help them heal, so then they can really enjoy their health and their fitness in an authentic and genuine way, not for the revenge or, those,
make it a lifestyle, not an 8-week.
People who are really struggling with confidence in general, and they're using gym to help them. This is kind of like that support, internal help that they can get for the long term. So there's a few things that we're working on. I'd love to get my own podcast up and running. But everything's just really exciting, and I'm just taking opportunities at the moment. So
And where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. I have got LinkedIn now, and TikTok.
Awesome. What's your tag name?
Stephanie Bailey .coaching.
I'll put it in the show notes. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. It's been a beautiful chat.
Thank you so much. I had actually so much fun. This was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here and sharing this space with me. This show is an extension of who I am. It takes a lot of heart, time, and energy to bring it to life. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. It might seem small, but it truly helps the show grow. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, please share it with them. These conversations are meant to ripple. Let's keep going together. Until next time, keep doing the work, keep asking the hard questions, and give yourself some grace along the way.